You also took Y Combinator money, but you didn't go through the program again. You'd been through it, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we I guess Octomatic had gone through Y Combinator, and I mean Stripe sort of already existed, and I guess we for no particularly good reason actually
Yeah.
we didn't end up going through the program again. Like I think kind of if I were to go back and look at that decision again, it would be kind of 50-50 as to whether or not we should. But yeah, we didn't go through it that time.
Can you talk about what are some of the? I mean, Y Combinator, it's clear they provide, financing. There's some mentorship there, but what are as somebody that's now, been a part of two companies that have been invested through that program?
Yep.
What are some of the tangible benefits that people get from, or intangible benefits
Right.
that you wouldn't think about they get through going through Y Combinator?
So there's a bunch of them. I think that, like for us, one thing that was really valuable was having all these alumni and just being part of this network of other startups. I mean, we were building a service that, whose initial users at least included a bunch of other startups, and so having kind of all these other people who we knew that were building startups, and being able to say to them, oh, you guys should use Stripe, instead of having them want to help us because we're a fellow Y Combinator company. I mean, that was just super valuable for us. In that basically other Y Combinator users were our users, and I think maybe our first 10 or 20 users were all YC companies. So that was really helpful. I guess I presume like many, if not most of the people here have startups themselves, and it turns out that startups are really hard. And just like having a bunch of other people around you who are sort of doing the same thing and like get that, I think is really really nice and valuable. But actually, I think that like Y Combinator talk quite a bit about, I think more than most sort of similar incubators or whatever you call that class of like seed funding entities. I think that they talk sort of more than most about what their value is and what they do, and they have actually this like really detailed document on the YC site describing just like what YC is and what you do. And they talk about sort of some of the benefits, like that they have a ton of data, like they see hundreds of companies, and so they can just kind of apply sort of aggregated other companies' experience to your experience and just sort of provide helpful data-driven advice in that way, or the alumni network or whatever it is. But I feel like YC can't actually sort of kind of, it's difficult for them to talk about the biggest advantage of YC, which is simply that Paul and their partners are really smart. And I feel like they can't really sort of write this document that sort of, you should do YC because we're really smart. But I think it's actually kind of the best reason to do YC, in that like Paul initially and the other partners, and now the other partners who've joined, are just really, really, really good. And I mean, I guess with Stripe we've been kind of lucky where we got to, or like do get to work with like lots of good investors, but like there's no question that YC are at the like very top tier.
And when you say good and smart, are you talking about like product feedback or execution or technology, or
right.
what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there was this like about a month ago or something, there was this meme going around Facebook of like what my mom thinks I do and like what my friends think I do and like whatever else for like all these different professions.
Yeah.
And I feel like the world thinks startup founders are like thinking all these strategic thoughts and like reclining in their chair thinking how to deal with the next big threat or whatever it is, and or like what the next giant breakthrough will be. Whereas in fact most of your time is spent like this particular thing is broken and the person who is going to fix it like had to go home and now like you have to fix it, or like this investor has this question, you need to produce this document, and like it's just like it's the all these distractions one after another. Like I think basically the experience of doing a startup is just like dealing with distractions in serial. And I mean sometimes the issues are actually huge, like you're trying to like close this round or this big deal, and there's some like recalcitrant investor or like stressful thing happening, or it's I don't know how to talk to this customer, or like whatever it is, but it really kind of spans the gamut. And I think, like to your question, like what are they actually good at? I think Paul and the other partners are really good at like just like getting that. I mean, they've done companies and they've seen this happen like literally thousands of times in other companies, and so whether the issue is like closing this round or doing this big deal or this acquisition or whatever, or it's just like how should the sign up button work? They have pretty good advice, and that's I mean that has made a big difference to Stripe.
Talk about just a little bit, and then we'll get back to Stripe. Talk a little bit about Paul Graham. You know Paul Graham probably as well as any of the YC founders do. What makes Paul Graham specifically so good? What makes him unique? And how has he helped you in your startups?
Hmm. He kind of reminds me a bit of Peter Thiel, actually. Uh, he just makes these surprising connections and comes up with these like surprising ideas that um, that are things that I have not thought of. And I mean, like, I guess I feel like lots of investors are sort of pretty good at the kind of quotidian things, like helping you close other deals, or you have a question at how should I grant options, or like what lawyer should I use? I mean, there are lots of investors that I think can give you pretty good advice there. Like usually, I find the conversations that are most kind of useful with Paul are like. Thinking about some like totally new area or something, and go to Paul, and he just I come back with sort of 10 10 ideas that I had not thought of, and like some of them are really outlandish and like terrible ideas, and some of them are good. And I don't know. I think that like both Paul Graham and Peter Thiel sort of have this property where they sort of look at the world kind of sideways and just like see it slightly differently to everybody else. And I'm not sure if that's kind of an acquired thing, or that's a kind of a consequence of having seen so many other companies, or something they actually kind of explicitly put effort into or whatever. But regardless of sort of what it is, I think I don't know, that's the thing that most strikes me about Paul.
Is there anything that he's not very good at?
Um, hmm.
I'll take that as a no.
He's not very good at. He's not very good at sort of feigning interest in something that he doesn't care about, and so. If he'll get like really taken with like some particular thing that you could do with the business, and you'll be like, and then you'll move on to some other topic, and for example, say you're talking about like how you should issue options, and now you're like thinking about how you should issue options, and like Paul is sort of 10 minutes back in the conversation thinking, and you know what you should really do, and that's actually this like giant take over the world plan with some like path that you have never thought of. Yeah.
Great. So